Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Psychology and Spirituality, a Bridge to a Better Life discussion. I'm Marcia, your host today, and with me is Dr. Anahy Fonseca. Hi, Anahy. So good to have you here. And as you know, we're trying to have a conversation about Jung's archetype of the apocalypse. So you may wonder, right? Why are you talking about apocalypse archetype? Well, let's think about some related questions that is brought up with this topic. Why are visions of the end of the world so prevalent in pop culture today? Why have apocalyptic themes been replicated? You find them in so many different forms. And this is not just now, right? Across millennia, spanning art, religion, science, philosophy, and very, very much present in our media, right? The media, the streaming media, TV, movies, and books, etc. Finally, if we think about it, do we ever have dreams with apocalyptic themes? What am I talking about? Well, dreams with hurricanes, tornadoes, tidal waves, earthquakes, floods, bombs, planets crashing toward Earth, etc. Such dreams, or I may call it inner dramas, call out for our conscious attention by providing this window deeper into our soul and really bringing to our attention an awareness of this archetype. So, in fact, Anaí, you as a Jungian analyst, I would love to hear from you anything about those apocalyptic dreams, what they represent, and how they may signify actually healing efforts going on. For me, the apocalyptic material from the unconscious is so scary. It's quite interesting to know when we start to read about it, when we start to be educated about it, that the message contains actually a very positive message, which is the potential for transformation, right, Anaí? So this is quite a different perspective from the pessimistic, catastrophic, end of the world, doomsday outlook that you see in movies today. But before we start a conversation in earnest, I would like to thank all of you who are listening, who are in this podcast today with us. And if this is your first time that you're joining us in this program, please note that the Psychology and Spirituality weekly talks are based on the works by Joanna de Angelis. And it is a great opportunity for us to actually confront, compare, correlate, and expand our own spirituality concepts from this psychological lens. So we're here to listen to Anahy Fonseca and how she brings light, insights about this idea of, is it doomsday? Is it the end of the world? Or is it the beginning of a new world? Before we start, please let me thank our sponsoring bodies for this program, and they are TV Mansão do Caminho, the United States Spirits Federation, the International Spirits Council, and AMI Brazil. Please, if you haven't done so, subscribe, and if you'd like to check out other information, you can do so by the link spiritist.us. Thank you for being here. We welcome your questions, your feedback, your ideas. Would love to have an additional time to talk about them if we don't have time today. But Anaim, right, back to our beginning. I am just quite fascinated with this number of those so-called doomsday movies out there. And I watched a couple of them. I must confess, every time I watch them, I am just anxiety ridden. I walk out really like, oh my gosh. The latest one was that one with Julia Roberts, I think was last year, that she leave the world behind, that they're just, luxury home for vacation. And there's the plot calls for cyber tax. And slowly you start to see them, from the plot, right, going facing with what is going on, what is going to happen next, etc., etc. We're not going to talk about this movie today, but I just wanted to say that as curious about this fascination with apocalypse, I really want us to talk about it from a psychological and spiritual lens. And with that, I would just have a couple of questions. Maybe we can talk later. Um, and if you want to talk, and then maybe have time to answer those questions, can you describe, because this is about the archetype, right? Can you remember to define or describe the meaning of archetype so all of us understand? And can we talk about what we mean by this transformation we're going through as a response to the unconscious changing? Mike is yours, Anahy.
Okay. Hello, everyone. So it's a very interesting theme, right? And something very up to date, let's say. Um, but I would like, so let's answer these questions. But I would like, first of all, to make, to provoke a little bit. And and talk about one of Jung's interview. I think people can find it in the internet, in YouTube, and whatever, where you people can put Carl Jung and the title "The World Hangs on a Thin Thread." And I think this is so important because Jung was quite old. That interview was a couple of years before he died. He died in June 1961, and he was kind of upset in that interview. He was not very happy. People have to remember that he had gone through two world wars. He was in the First World War. He was a young doctor, actually. He
Mhm.
went to the war as a doctor, medical doctor. And we are going to talk a little bit about some of his prophetic visions, okay? But in Jung's words, and I think this is very important for us to start our conversation, he says, and I quote, the world hangs on a thin thread, and that is the psyche of man. Nowadays, we are not threatened by elementary catastrophes. There is no such thing as an age bomb. He means in nature, right?
Yeah.
That is all man's doing. We are the great danger. Psyche is the great danger. What if something goes wrong with the psyche? It is demonstrated to us in our days that the power of the psyche is what the power of the psyche is, how important it is to know something about it. But we know nothing about it.
I
No
was going to
one
interrupt you
would.
to say, we know, if we know very little, right, Anahy?
Yeah, but this is Jung talking. So he
Yeah.
was, he was. And we're talking also based on the spiritual writings of Joanna de Angelis. So I
Correct.
think this is very important. Why Joanna de Angelis started giving all the spiritual and psychological information in her wonderful books to Divaldo Pereira Franco to
Hmm.
psychograph.
Yeah.
Because this is Jung saying in the end of his life,
Yeah.
okay, in the late 50s.
Hmm.
And we can see by Joanna's writings in the last, I think, 30 years, right?
Hmm.
So people have to pay attention because here we are in the ego is talking, but
Yeah.
we have the higher self
Yeah.
and we have the spirit's guides to help us.
Yep.
And we need so much. That's what Joanna is warning us. And of course, we know we have this information that she has been working with Jung in spiritual realms for a long time, even previously to Jung's coming, right?
Hmm.
So there is always a purpose in the spiritual realms to give us advice, information. So it's not something that we can read and say, oh, how cool, because this would be the ego. And okay, we need the ego to do the homework, to read, to reflect, to do what we are doing today. But the calling is to go deeper.
Yeah.
Joanna, Jung, and the spiritual guides are warning and helping us to go deeper. We are
Hmm.
talking about an expansion of consciousness in this time of transition that Jung knew that were coming, and that we have a lot of mediums all around the world telling us that these times would come, right? So it's not something to be afraid, but because fear is from the ego, right? It is something for us to be calm, focus, to have focus,
Yeah.
and to study, to discuss and debate as we are doing today with everybody that is listening and maybe have questions are going to send to Marcia and everybody else. And here, Divaldo and Mansão do Caminho and all the friends that are teaching Joanna de Angelis all around the world and studying her
Hmm.
writings and studying Jung also from this spiritual perspective, so we can go deeper. And why? Because, see, people, is saying the world hangs on a thin thread, and the danger is the psyche, is when we are ignorant about the power of the psyche. Okay, and we all have psyches. So
Yeah.
we all have a lot of, we say, oh, empower people for this and that, but the real empowerment is the knowledge of the psyche with humility,
Yes.
not with ego inflation, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And the knowledge and the understanding of the interconnectedness among everything, and our divine essence, origin, right? So we are not gods, as in the
Hmm.
Groundhog Day that we taught the wonderful Bill Murray. Oh, I'm not the God, I'm a God, I think, he says. Okay, just to make a little light conversation, but of course we are not the God. This would be ego inflation, and then we
Yeah.
would be sick or whatever, mentally disturbed. But to know that we come from a divine origin, that we are brothers and sisters really, and deep in the psyche is the knowledge, the wisdom that our higher self has about our origin. Okay,
Yes.
so that's the connection that Joanna, Jung, and everybody else that study the psyche spiritually, psychologically speaking, uh, asks us, to pay attention to. So Jung says that psyche is the great danger. What if something goes wrong with the psyche? And
Yeah.
he's saying that this, just remember, okay, the psyche is out of space and time. That's why Jung himself had prophetic visions. And we are going to talk a little about that. And we know people are talking a lot about timelines, okay, because we are captains of our own ships, right? So we can
Yeah.
choose where we are going individually and collectively, right? So he died in June, and we know what happened in 1961, Marcia, that almost started the Third World War, and it was in April. It
Hmm.
was in the the Pigs Bay, right? The Bay
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
Pigs in
Yeah.
Cuba.
Yeah.
So, he was much connected with the collective
Yeah.
of the 20th century. So he says, it is demonstrated to us in our days what the power of the psyche is, how important it is to know something about it, but we know nothing about it. No one would give credit to the idea that the psychic processes of the ordinary man have any importance whatever. He has no ideas at all, and that is the great mistake. Okay? So Jung is talking about the ordinary man. He's not talking about great world leaders, you know?
Yeah.
And why is Jung talking about that? Because the ordinary man,
Hmm.
are very, very powerful in our psyche. Each one of us is a drop in the ocean, as some people asked Mother Teresa of Calcutta,
Yeah.
right? Why do you do what you do? It's a drop in the ocean. And then she says, yes, but what would happen to the ocean without this drop?
Yes.
Or
And it's so
something like
beautiful.
in
Yeah.
this.
It's such a beautiful saying, by the way.
It is such a beautiful. So I think it's very, very important for us to understand that when each of us
Hmm.
don't know anything about our shadow aspects, right? Our egotistic, our envy, our aggressiveness, and all those emotions that we know disturb ourselves, right?
Yeah.
But we are vibrating when we have this kind of emotions.
Yeah.
And there are, for instance, if I have been something bad, or somebody that I love has betrayed me, for instance,
Hmm.
in a business or in
Yeah.
friendship, in
Yeah.
love, right? And I can't find within myself the power or the will even. I'm not willing to forgive.
Hmm.
So I will vibrate very low. And I will send to the universe. We're going to see what Joanna talks about this in the end of our talk. I will send this message to the universe, okay? So, okay, I'm a tiny piece of the universe, you know? But I'm a piece, I'm a drop in this ocean that we are all part of. So the unbalance that I create is reflecting on the whole.
So
Okay.
it's me creating this lack of balance, if you will, because of emotions, but I put it out, right? This energy goes into the world. Yeah.
Goes into the world. So we need so much. So we have the individual apocalypse, let's say, and the
Yeah.
collective one.
Hmm.
Okay. But when the self gives vision sense from deep, the transpersonal dimension of the psyche,
Yeah.
the archetypes are old forms, let's say, patterns that are
Yeah.
have the potential to emerge in consciousness, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
to manifest in our lives, both, of course, individually and collectively, because we are all connected. People have a hard time believing that, because in these days that we are living in, we are so we are so connected. You will
Disconnect.
talk.
Well, yeah, I think we're disconnected when we're really connected. Even when you think we're closer, we are not, right?
Yes, we are here in a paradox. Just in
Yeah.
this moment, you are in the USA, I'm in Brazil. We
Uh-huh.
are so close, in a sense, and so close to everyone that is listening to us, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because people can feel the energy in our voices, the way we
Yeah.
talk to each other.
Yeah.
But of course, you and other guests and Jusana and everybody who is, wow, I have to learn more about that because it's myself, because it's all about my brothers and sisters and how we influence each other for good and for worse, and how we can change what people in the USA say the timelines. Okay, we don't have to go towards a collective apocalypse in a sense of destruction that, as you said in the beginning, oh, it gives fear to everyone.
Yeah.
And of course, a lot of movies, for instance, they are supposed to give kind of fear, but always in a good message when ends well. But
Yeah.
usually ends well because the good guy and the good girl, whatever,
They
uh,
fight and they get it, right?
the fight, yes. But okay, the whole world goes to an end, so who cares? It's more or less, it's like some silliness in a sense.
But
Uh,
but do you
and
remember, and I just real
go
quick,
ahead.
sorry to interrupt you, but do you remember that's what comes to my mind when we talk about apocalypse? Either 1999 to 2000, the Y2K craze, right? It was a craze to the point at I remember quite well in the US, we're looking for those that went to 2000 before us, right? Because
Yeah.
it's not the same time, it's a relative time. So they showed Australia, they showed China, they showed, and nobody was destroyed. And I remember that that was televised progressively, but the intent was not to cheer, to kiss, to hug, and happy say Happy New Year. It was like, is this the end of society as we know it? I remember so well later, and I'm thinking about 12 years later in the 2012 mark, right? How everybody was afraid. And I happened to meet Divaldo in Atlanta, not here in Nashville, but when I lived in Atlanta. And he specifically breaks down the year 2012, why everybody thought it was the end of the world, and was all about the Mayan calendar
Yes.
that
Hmm.
ended in the cycle of 2012. So he just explains there's no need. It's just those are cyclical endings. But the fear that we face with the idea that we don't know, we don't control, but it's all doom, right? It's all this darkness, this destruction, materially speaking. When we start to, at least for me, when you start to read this this psychological view of apocalypse, it's completely different. It is quite optimistic, right? And I don't know.
Yes, 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 great. Yes, because we are talking here from, as Divaldo did, from a psychological and spiritual. Cannot be only
Yes.
psychological, Marcia.
Yeah.
It's psychological
Correct.
and spiritual point of
Yes.
view. Because when we talk about psychology, for instance, we can be talking about only psychological, without the spiritual, as incredible
Yeah.
as it as it sounds, right? Without the psyche, actually. Just remember that Jung
Yeah.
is the psychologist and psychiatrist that brought back to psychology the word psyche, that is soul, right?
Yeah.
So that's
Yes.
why
Yes.
Jung's psychology is called depth psychology, because it goes further than Freud and deeper, actually,
Mm-hmm.
than Freud did,
Mm-hmm.
because he gets to the point of understanding the collective unconscious, what we call the transpersonal dimension of the psyche, and the self.
Yeah.
So this other consciousness, the higher consciousness deep within
Mm-hmm.
our psyche, that is a ordering principle of the psyche. So it's very important what you said, because the archetypes, they reveal themselves
Mm-hmm.
through experience, and they are expressed through images, right? So they
Mhm.
are spontaneous phenomena. We cannot control them.
Yeah.
When the
Yeah.
self sends images, and dreams, you cannot control, right? Your own dreams, of course, we are talking, and the
Yes.
images of
Yeah.
the self.
Yeah.
And they are universal images. And also, there's something very important that people to understand, that they possess a
Hmm.
purposefulness. Okay, there's a
Yes.
purpose in the dreams, of the visions, of the information that come from the collective unconscious, from this dimension. And what happens is that we feel like something really bad is going to happen,
Yeah.
only, so it signifies disaster only if the ego, that's very important, is alienated, let's say, from this, or is antagonistic
Uh-huh.
towards the, what the image, towards the information, like is struggling not to pay attention, or is feeling threatened in a sense. So because this material, if the
Hmm.
self is doing, through all the work to create images and themes, of apocalyptic nature, it's to call the attention of the ego, so that we can really do something
Uh-huh.
about what's going on first in our inner world. Because let's remember what Jung said, that the great danger is the psyche, and that
Yeah.
we know far too little about the psyche, right? We
Yeah.
have to know more about ourselves. And also because of things like our shadows that we were talking about, our, the emotions that are hard to control, and the spiritual values that we are struggling in this life to learn better and more,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
As forgiveness, compassion, fraternity. So this, all this learning that we need to do, um, they are very important, because we have the power, we have the tools to learn. Okay,
Hmm.
so we have to have faith on ourselves in the first place.
Yeah.
And if the self is calling our attention, is because the self believes. And okay, we know, as Joanna says, that the self, capital S, Jung self, is our spirit. So, of course, together with the spiritist knowledge, we know that we have planned this incarnation, and the major things that we would go through, right? Because there's a purpose, and the
Hmm.
purpose is learning and evolution. So, what I think at this point is very important for people to know, if someone doesn't know yet, as because Divaldo has been in the US and talked to a lot of people, but
Yeah.
for people that are listening maybe for the first time, that apocalypse means revelation. Isn't that wonderful? It
Yes.
doesn't mean destruction or whatever, end of the world. This is silly, because apocalypse is a Greek, in Greek, okay, the root calypto, it means to cover or to hide. And the prefix is the preposition apo,
Yeah.
which means away from. Isn't that beautiful? So, apocalypse means to take the covering away from. So, perhaps from what has been secret, right, for ourselves, for the ego, revealing what has been invisible, what we cannot, for some reason, maybe our immaturity, our lack of trying, maybe, right?
Is it
Our inner
also,
strength.
sorry, is it also our unconscious, our shadow, from a very
Yes,
personal vision that we are now starting
yes,
to access more?
yes. I think individually we could say we need to be brave to face ourselves,
Yes.
to face our own apocalypse, and let's say our own revelation, right?
I like
Um,
that. Uh-huh.
yeah, yeah. So if we do that individually, and a lot of people here in Brazil, I think United States and Europe are talking about people it's are in waking up in a spiritual sense, right?
Yeah,
Talking about people being awakened,
yeah,
spiritually awakened. So I
yeah.
think as when we achieve a point in a, I don't know the statistics, but when enough people are awakened for this reality of that we are spirits, that we don't die only in the material sense, but the consciousness goes on and we are always evolving and learning, then of course the that's the major revelation. But it's not
Hmm.
only intellectual, you know, we need to really face our own fears, as you said.
Hmm.
Okay, maybe if you want, if people want to see an apocalyptic movie, I grew up with a Tower Inferno. Then you can know my age. An earthquake.
Yes. And they were so
We,
popular, right? In the 70s, which is they're coming week after week, this type of destruction, mass destruction
yes,
in
when
terms
we
of
were, when
yeah,
I was teenager, yeah,
yeah,
and
yeah,
of course earlier or later with Titanic and things like
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah,
And there was that beautiful song. How was that in Titan? The first Titanic, I think.
yeah.
That it's there's got to be a morning after. The morning after.
Mm,
It's
hmm.
beautiful. This song. If you can find the morning after, it's beautiful because it's all about waking up
Yes,
and
yes, indeed.
leaving this darkness. So apocalypse in our days, and of course, it was not about the end of the world.
Yeah,
um, Man could have done that, okay, if we couldn't realize the danger in our darkness, in dark side, let's say, the shadow, but the shadow side. But we have been learning. I think I'm always optimist, you know, and
yes,
especially after studying Joanna, as Divaldo told you guys in Atlanta, because we have some shadows, but we are learning about ourselves, and the light that we have is getting stronger and stronger.
yeah,
And when enough people have all the, you know, join lights together, then of course we have transition, and we are in another, as we are doing now. And then we are in another, what we call in spiritist knowledge, regenerate world, where
yeah,
we are more spiritual, more affectionate, more compassionate to each other. And then, of course, silly things like wars, because they are silly,
they're
like they
silly.
are
Yeah,
from,
yeah,
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 immature people that,
yeah,
I'm sorry about the great leaders, they are all immature, spiritually speaking, because we, from the transpersonal point of view, in this deep dimension of the psyche, that is deep, but it's here with us now. It's not
yeah,
in a, oh, in a very strange land within myself. It's what I we are all, right? So in this dimension, that
uh-huh,
it's getting each time more, each time stronger, let's say, because we are all waking up from
yeah,
this
yeah,
illusion of separateness. So in this point, from this point of view, we are really one. So wars and doing bad things to each other, there's no point, no sense. This is senseless, right?
yeah, because it's
So
very
we
egoic,
are getting
right?
there.
It's yeah, it's a wars is a good example, especially world wars, first and second last century. But if you think about it, those are this egoic driver to control and to possess and to own, etc. And when we look at the world as a collective world, as you mentioned before, brothers and sisters that we are, then it changes everything. It changes the paradigm. And I keep thinking the word that comes to my mind, Anahy, is meaning, right? There's a uh, re-signification, if you will. We're able to re-signify everything that happens to us in this new sense, this new light of let us all be awakened to what we are now able to do. Huh?
Yes, yes, that's beautiful. It's exactly. And you know, Marcia, from this perspective that we are talking about, the apocalyptic events or psychic material that we are talking about may be revealing some new piece of our humanity, actually. And I would say our divinity, in a sense, our origin, right?
Yeah, yeah,
From where we all come. And okay, even in personally and collectively, also
yeah. This is
something
quite
new.
beautiful. Yeah, quite
Yeah.
quite beautiful. Everyone, please pay attention. I'm thinking of myself as a teacher of young ones because it's quite beautiful, this idea of embracing our humanity, and as we do that, embrace our own divinity, personally and collectively. Wow, thank you for that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
I think so. And now, in a sense, I think people would want to know, and I think Jung,
yeah,
whenever he is,
yeah, yeah,
and we don't know, of course, spiritually speaking, where is his consciousness, and consciousness is so big, he could be listening to us here, right? And
hi Jung.
uh, right. So I think he would be very glad to know our efforts to,
Yeah,
to do what he said. Maybe the world is not so much hanging on a thin thread anymore, right?
yeah, yeah,
And and also what I wanted to tell people about Jung's prophetic visions.
yes,
If
yes,
people don't know yet, in 1958, so
yeah,
he died in 61, he warned people that an archetype, and I quote, an archetype was stirring in a way that was characteristic for the end of an era. He didn't say the end of the world,
yeah,
okay?
yeah,
And of course, we know that Jung studied astrology. So the end of the era was a Pisces, from the shift, right, from Piscean to the Aquarian age, okay? And Jung spoke of the upheavals and great changes that
yes,
we can
yes,
expect during such a major transition. And we
yeah,
know that in spiritist knowledge, we have lots of writings from Chico
yeah,
Xavier and Divaldo about this, right?
yeah,
But Marcia and everybody, few people had listened to Jung,
mm,
unfortunately, because
yeah,
we know he had a vision. It's all written in the red book and the black books. We know about in biographies of
hmm,
Jung's. And I think in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, his autobiography also, he talks about that. He had visions previously to the First World War, and he saw like a wave of blood um, covering Europe and stopping in the on the Alps. That we know that Switzerland, right, the Alps,
yeah.
had always been neutral.
There is a, before we go further,
So, but
love
nobody would
to,
listen, and
yeah,
it
I would
would.
love to, and because you went out for just a little bit, I was just telling everybody here that if you haven't, if you're not young, old enough, right? If you're young, if beyond young, being young at heart, but that idea from the 60s that Jung was mentioning and moving from to an age of Aquarius. So there was a movie, right, in the 60s that really talked about the concept of this new dawn, new age of Aquarius. and of course portrayed against those protesting or not the Vietnam War in the US. So the lyrics, just one refrain talks about harmony and understanding, sympathy and trust abounding. No more falsehoods or derisions, golden living dreams of visions, mystic crystal revelation, and the mind's true liberation. So I think it's good that you brought that because not only it's a great song, a great movie, but it's brings us today to the idea that as we shift, as the world shift, and maybe we missed the calling in the 60s, right? Maybe all of that harmony, right? I don't know, Anna, you're smiling. All of those shifts and the calling that was perhaps externalized with the hippie movement, etc. But we missed it. So, and it's okay to miss it, right? Collectively and personally, we will get there.
Marcia, do you know why I'm smiling? And
Yes.
everybody who's listening,
Yeah.
it's a huge synchronicity has just happened
Uh,
in the air right now.
yeah.
Because this lyrics that you said,
Yeah.
I sung. I studied in Western High School in Massachusetts, and I
Uh-huh.
graduated from high school there. So there was a senior variety show,
Oh,
and we
wow.
all, my class, all sang exactly this song.
Oh,
I
wow.
have
It's
a tape
beautiful.
recorded,
Yeah.
yeah, of 17 years old I was
Uh,
singing it exactly this lyric that you
yeah.
have said. So this is a powerful synchronicity here now, just
Yeah.
now in the air,
Uh,
for you to remember that
yeah.
and talk about this. And I especially lived this transition when in the movies they were the age of Aquarius, and
Yes.
we were living this with the end of the Vietnam War and
Yeah.
trying to and the hippie movement of peace and love,
Yes.
and all this. The message, of course, got a little bit out of the out of the road with other stuff that happened, but the message was peace and love to all, right?
Yes. Yes.
So that's the transition that we have to
Mhm.
understand. And
Yeah.
this is great because that was, I was laughing because of that, because
Yeah.
that synchronicity that here now, just now, is the self manifesting each other, this transpersonal dimension that I was talking about. So it doesn't matter the many decades between when we are young and have ideals and all the energy of youth that we need so much,
Yes.
but we also need the wisdom when we are much older and we have lived uh, long enough
Yeah.
and the ego has matured. So we have to join together the experiences of and the energy, psychic energy of our younger selves and our older selves, so that we can be like the process of individuation, we can be whole,
Yeah.
because there is energy, wisdom, inspiration, let's say, and information that comes. And the self doesn't have any age, let's say. Well,
Yeah.
it has some age that we don't know about. We don't
Yeah.
know when we were born, spiritually speaking.
Yeah.
But what's wonderful, and it's a wonderful example, what has just happened. We haven't, this is unscripted, so I didn't know you were going to remember this song, specifically, these sentences in the lyrics that I can remember myself singing really loud and very energetic, right?
That's awesome.
And we would change the world. And actually, that's what I was saying to Jung here, when we don't know where he is, but let's connect to his consciousness, that yes, we believe, and I think we have changed the timeline already,
Yeah.
because even if there are some people around the world trying to make war, ugly stuff happening, but
Yes.
a lot of people are awakening,
Yes.
spiritually speaking. So we are, I think, enough people awakening with this loving energy and wisdom that we are uh, beyond anything else, beyond the material body. We are spirits, and we
Yes.
have a divine sparkle that is shining each time stronger within ourselves. So if we just are brave enough to work with our own shadows, first of all, and help each other, without fear, without judgment, to do this work, I'm quite sure that we are, heading really quickly to this other world that actually I think it's already here
Yeah.
today. And every time that we talk about these issues in podcasts like this,
Hmm.
every time we read books, but not only with our heads, but with our hearts that talk about this kind of material, we are awakening and shining a little bit more.
That's
So
beautiful. Yeah.
we're revealing, in apocalyptic sense, the archetype,
Yeah.
and we are connect each time more our humanity
Yeah.
and connecting to the self. So
Yeah.
I wanted to tell Jung, I'm being bold. So I wanted to tell Jung that the work of his life was not a waste, that
Absolutely.
we are listening to everything that he tried to warn us. And I saw recently in an interview with Jung and Marie-Louise von France, that was
Yeah.
like his right, very close to him, right arm and things like that, that in the end of his life, Jung had a vision of catastrophic events, okay, happening. But let's remember, it was 1961,
Mm.
and he had gone through all that we are talking, the Bay of Pigs invasion, two world wars, the Cold War, all this stuff. And Jung's daughter took notes, okay. But from what I understand and everything that I've read, Jung had had a near death experience some years previously. He had been out of his body. It's all written in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, his autobiography. And he had, like, I don't want to give spoilers to people that are going to read, but he had seen what's really important, and that peace that comes to us when we are in the spiritual realms, if we have done the homework here,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So he had a kind of prophetic visions, but we know that he said, well, he asked his daughter to take notes. But from what I understood, he was warning. So deep within himself, he knew, as we had this warning from Chico Xavier, that's also in the YouTube, all the wonderful 1970 something interview with Chico Xavier, for instance. And I think as has English subtitles if people
Yes.
want,
Yeah.
right? And he said, if we at least can be peaceful to each other, and especially the great nations of the world can at least, try not to do harm to each other, something like that, then we are going to develop so much, so many things are going to be revealed to us, and science is going to develop a lot. So I think we are getting in this point, and I think that that's the revelation,
Yeah.
that it's actually coming. And I think Jung helped a lot, because maybe many people didn't listen to him, but he talked to the collective unconscious, because he created that psychology, right?
Correct.
And we are studying, and
Yes.
Joanna is working with him and using a lot of his concepts, right, to go further than he did. So it's all a construction. So it's not competition as we always do. It's helping each other to
Yeah,
go further.
yeah,
I
that's
talk too
awesome.
much.
Yeah, no, no, you didn't. But we are at time, and I was hoping perhaps, and that you could close with any words, perhaps anything that Joanna may have told us about this subject.
Yes, thank you, Marcia, because she talks about such beautiful
Mm,
sentence in her books, and I wrote here for you some of them. And I think it closed very well what we have been talking about. Joanna says, human existence is a constant challenge. Every challenge requires effort for the struggle. When individuals recoil from a trying experience, they lose the chance to affirm their values at the expense of their personal growth. Aren't we talking about that? So she says, since individuals are a miniature cosmos, they are governed by the same laws as the great universe. Isn't that beautiful?
yes.
From this perfect interplay between the small focal points, each one of us, and the great focal point, capital F, capital P, harmony emerges, which is the noblest manifestation. I think it's so beautiful.
I was going to say, well done. Thank you for
Joanna,
bringing,
well
yes,
done.
well done, Joanna and Jung. I just
Yeah.
want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. Fascinating. I welcome, invite all of you, and welcome to this discovery of what is the apocalyptic view of this archetype that Jung brings to us, and how comforting it actually is, right? To be able to, as you say, to reveal what's not out in the open. So let us all be very, very open, courageous, and pursue this awareness through self discovery, but also the sense of awakening to what we all can do, our expanded consciousness, and embracing this brotherhood that we all are part of. With that, Anahy, we'll see you again soon, I hope. And everyone, I'll talk to you next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.